Junction, what's your function?
Hooking up words and phrases and clauses.
Junction, how's that function?
I got three favorite cars that get most of my job done.
Junction, what's their function?
I got and, but, and or. They'll get you pretty far. And, that's an additive, like this and that. But, that's sort of the opposite. Not this, but that. And then there's or. O-R. When you have a choice like this or that. And, but, and or get you pretty far.
Junction, what's your function?
If you're very careful.
Junction, what's your...
Okay, so before we talk about the functions of behavior, let's recap and wrap up this 6-part Change Your Behavior series. I do hope you got some value from what we talked about. I hope you're using your changing criteria and methods of behavior change to change interfering behavior for good. I also hope you are regularly rewarding yourself for your little gains. If you're engaged in habits that you can't kick, those behaviors on extinction like we talked about. But make sure that you find a replacement behavior. You can't just remove a behavior and expect it to stay away. You have to find a replacement behavior that serves the same function, but is less disruptive to your life and your environment. So just remember the things that we talked about previously. Today, though, and for the final segment, as my intro suggested, I'm going to share with you a little concept that to me is mind-boggling. I'm going to tell you about 4 little categories that all of your behavior fit into. Seriously, every single behavior that you engage in fits into one of the 4 categories that I'm going to talk about with regard to its function. This concept applies to your mom, your dad, your granny, your cat, the postman, the pastor, the kid next door, Uncle Ernest, Auntie Mabel, Cousin Kevin. 4 functions of all behavior. Simplistic, I know. But simply put, all behaviors occur for a reason. All human behaviors can be categorized into 4 functions. These functions are escape, attention, access to tangibles, and sensory. The 4 categories do not imply that these behaviors are bad. These categories simply compartmentalize behavior by what the behavior intends to achieve. And a really easy way to remember these 4 functions is that everybody eats. And eats is the acronym for escape and avoidance, attention, tangible, and sensory. E, escape, A, attention, T, tangibles, and S, sensory. So let's look at these functions individually. Let's begin with the function of escape. So an individual engages in a behavior to end or avoid something they don't like. So basically they're escaping from the thing. For example, let's use a school example. Every time a teacher places a vocabulary worksheet on Henry's desk, he tears up the worksheet and throws it on the floor. As a result, the teacher does not make Henry do the vocabulary homework anymore, or the worksheet. In the future, Henry continues to engage in this behavior every time he receives a vocabulary worksheet, because it results in him escaping the work. Another example, let's see. You may ask your teenager to do the dishes, and she says she has a stomachache. So you tell her it's okay, go lay down. The likelihood of the teenager engaging in this behavior again in the future is pretty high because gets to escape an activity that she's not too thrilled about. Okay, let's look at function number 2, attention. An individual engages in a behavior to receive attention. For example, little Sarah screams every time that her father walks away from her. When Sarah engages in this screaming behavior, her father returns to her immediately and says, "What's wrong, Sarah?" This behavior is attention maintained because the behavior consistently results in attention. When Sarah wants attention, she screams. It's likely she's going to keep on screaming if Dad keeps giving her that attention. Another example. Attention-seeking behavior can include saying or doing something with the goal of getting the attention of a person or a group of people. Examples of this behavior include fishing for compliments by pointing out achievements and seeking validation, being controversial just to provoke a reaction, exaggerating and embellishing stories to gain praise or sympathy, or pretending to be unable to do something so someone will teach, help, or watch the attempt to do something. Basically, you've got eyes on you. Function number 3, tangibles. So an individual will engage in a behavior to get access to an item or activity. A tangible is basically something an individual can touch or pick up. For example, Joey wants a toy from his friend. During playtime, Joey hits his friend, which results in the peer dropping the toy, crying, and potentially running away. As a result of the hit, Joey now has access to the toy he wanted. So this hitting behavior will continue because Joey realizes that when he hits his friend, more than likely, he will then have access to the toy he wanted in the first place. Other examples of behavior maintained by tangible are stealing, manipulation, coaxing, befriending. For example, somebody may see a really cool car that they like, and so they befriend the driver in the hopes that the driver will say, "Hey, you want to come for a ride in my car?" Broad example, I know. When I was around 5 years old, probably about 5 or 6, I used to have a neighbor. Her name was Ruth. My parents had moved into a pretty affluent neighborhood, which was a quite unique situation in England back in the 70s. However, Ruth was my best friend, and I was hers. But because we were culturally different, there was a lot of curiosity when it came to the foods that we ate in our house. Very often, Ruth would come over to our house and smell the amazing aroma of whatever my mom was cooking. And no offense, but UK cuisine was pretty bland once upon a time. So, of course, the aroma of our dinner had all of Ruth's senses on overdrive. So Ruth would point to our table and say to my mom, "What's that? I like that. My mommy gives me that." And of course, my kind, lovely mom would say, "Would you like some?" And Ruth would say, "Yes, please." Ruth would take one bite, turn red, cry, and say, "I don't like it." Ruth's behavior was a classic example of manipulative behavior for access to tangible items. As I said earlier, functions of behavior are not always negative, nor do they have to be demonstrated in the form of complex behaviors. Simply asking for something would also fit into the category of a tangible function of a specific behavior. Now let's talk about function number 4, sensory. An individual will engage in a behavior because it physically feels good or relieves something that feels bad. Let's see. For example, Derek holds his ears when peers are talking loudly. This behavior provides automatically sensory stimulation as it reduces loud noises for Derek. Typically, the goal of sensory seeking behavior is to obtain some form of sensation from the immediate environment. This could involve one or lots of different parts of the body. Sights, sounds, smells, tastes, textures, or body movements can all trigger sensory issues. Some examples may include providing pressure or squeezing certain parts of the body, waving or placing objects near the eyes, covering the eyes to avoid bright lights or patterns, chewing on objects or clothing, avoiding certain perfumes, lotions, or air fresheners, strong aversions to specific food textures. Smoking, for example, has a sensory function. I'm sorry, I'm back at the smoking again, but to me, it's a very complex behavior. Smoking cigarettes gives users a number of different sensations. There's the sight, taste, smell, hearing, touch from holding it in one's fingers or rolling a cigarette. It has a vestibular input, the spinning sensation. The vestibular, also known as the movement, gravity, and balance sense, which allows us to move smoothly. So let's unpack this a little bit. Think about which of these sensations a smoker may find pleasurable. The taste in the mouth, sensory. The hot air in the mouth, also sensory. The hot air in the lungs, sensory. Sucking the cigarette, sensory. Hearing the sucking sound, sensory. The smell of the smoke, olfactory, sensory. Holding the cigarette with one's fingers, sensory. Rolling the cigarette, the look of the cigarette. So why are we talking about all of this? Well, while it's a fun and interesting fact that all behavior fits into one of 4 functions, and let me just caveat that it doesn't have to be just one function for one behavior. There could be multiple functions. Like, for example, a behavior may be attention maintained and also maintained by the tangible need. So, the deeper implication here is that when our behavior becomes problematic, we can trace it back to the source of that behavior to find its function and then replace that behavior with a functional equivalent that is less problematic. And that's basically why we're even talking about this, I'm sorry. So let's look at some solutions. For escape maintained behavior, if the escape function is causing problematic behavior, for example, absenteeism from work, incomplete tasks, substandard performance, find ways to reduce the load of the task. Take or request breaks. Ask for help. Break work up into smaller increments. This will invariably reduce the likelihood of you engaging in problematic behaviors that could end up with, for example, you losing your job. Let's look at attention. If the attention function is broken and forces you to engage in interfering or maladaptive behavior, seek out alternative methods of achieving attention that are more socially acceptable and less bothersome to others. Mutually agreed upon social interactions will be highly rewarding. Be patient, don't be pushy, and understand that not all attention is good attention. Understand also that people require different levels of interaction at different times of their lives. They literally may have a level of interaction that may not match the level of interaction that you desire at any given time. But that's okay. The good news is that someone with healthy and wholesome intentions within your space is also looking for that level of interaction. With intentionality, you'll be led to them. You will find them. I promise you. So let's look at some solutions for sensory needs. Adults definitely need the ability to self regulate, organize their sensory systems, and support their sensory and emotional needs. So, how can we go about this in the midst of work, parenting, and everything that life brings? Well, a sensory diet supports the sensory needs of many individuals, providing them with a set of sensory strategies used to assist with the regulation of activity levels, attention, and adaptive responses. The overall goals of a sensory diet are to meet the sensory needs of an individual by preventing sensory overload, supporting self regulation, and helping to have an organized response to sensory stimuli. I'll put a link in the description box below with a detailed description of what a sensory diet is and how to effectively put it to work. So you're probably thinking that this oversimplifies human behavior. Well, let's just put it to the test. Let's just throw out some random behaviors to demonstrate how all behavior fits into these four functions. Think about some of your own behaviors. Eating. What is the function of eating? Tangible. Sensory. Walking. You may be walking to escape. You may be walking to get somewhere tangible. You may be walking because you enjoy walking. Sensory. What about chewing gum? Sensory. There's a sensory sensation. Chewing gum, let's say, tangible. Access to the taste that bubblegum gives you initially, at least. There are multiple functions and multiple associated behaviors. And the reason we're talking about them today is basically to help you to understand your own behavior, understand the functions of your acceptable behavior, but moreover, to understand the functions of your maladaptive, problematic, or interfering behavior so that you can change them. I really hope that you've enjoyed this series. I certainly have. I do want you to tune in again because beyond this, after we wrap this up, I'm going to be talking to all of the entrepreneurs, business owners, small business owners, medium business owners, larger business owners. We're going to be talking about what your business looks like, how you can improve your business. Are you at optimum performance? Do you think your business could be doing a little better, a lot better? Well, we're going to be pinpointing some of those problem areas of your behavior to see if we can get you optimally producing. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to talking to you soon.